Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher. And as we move on to part 3 of our DPS week, we're starting to get a picture of how we should be playing in Warlords of Draenor and how we can now develop into the beast. The beast, the fear. That's right, the things that all WoD bosses should fear, because now we're becoming more mature in our DPS. What we've looked at in part 1 was how to manage our DPS, how to get the most out of it. How can we push our character beyond its limits and really see what potential it has lying under the hood by thinking about our timings, thinking about our cooldowns. How many times can we do things? How can we stack them properly? How can we make our DPS as high as possible? In part 2, we unshackled ourselves. We got rid of the burden of caring about stupid, trivial things like our place on the damage meter. We looked at how overall damage for a fight is completely irrelevant now. How WoD encounters have moved on, how they've progressed more heavily into different priorities and different shiftings of what's going on in the fights and how we can dispense with those. We looked at the reasons why we're dispensing with those, and we've looked at how we can actually look and analyze what we did to increase our performance. So now comes part 3. Part 3 is using that knowledge in order to really shine and to make bosses die. That is our goal, is to make bosses die. And if we follow the rules and we use the things we learned in 1 and 2, we can actually make that happen on a much better, much clearer, much faster process. Okay? We'll do that far speedier. So how do we do that? Understanding our fight. It sounds so fucking easy, but I guarantee you there are a number of DPS, if not way too many, in your raid group who don't really know why you're doing certain things. They hope and they pray that their raid leader will tell them what to do, and they don't really get why. And that's terrible, because you can't make good decisions about your damage based on that information. Based on a raid leader giving you generalized information like, oh, okay, we need to kill this. And you're like, all right then, I'll kill this thing. And you're just that DPSer. Over the coming couple of episodes, I'll be using DPS whore more and more. And DPS whores have become the huge burden of most raids. A huge burden to progress. Because Blizzard keeps throwing these troll fights at us where they say, hey, you know what, here's this thing. DPS it, but it actually is so less relevant than the other aspects of the fight, and you don't understand why. I often found it, even as back as TBC, when I really started to get in depth into PvE and understand why PvE was so enjoyable to me, what aspects of it really drew me in, is that every now and again a DPSer would pipe up with some claim and some piece of information, and you just go, oh my god, we've done 50 fucking pulls here and you don't know what's going on. You don't know why we're doing this. And if you don't know what's happening in the fight overall, if you don't know what your other players are doing, whether you will be supported here, whether they will be doing this cleave here, how much are they putting out, can I refocus my DPS elsewhere, you can't make those decisions, and then you fall into that DPS whore pack where it's like, well, I'll play it safe, and I'll just kind of derp and splurge my mucus all over this thing, and then, you know, hopefully everybody else will do the job for me. And that's a terrible way to be. A number of fights in WoD have really highlighted that aspect of it. So let's look at them and see what kind of decisions we can make. If we look at, let's say Iron Maidens. Okay. Iron Maidens will have some sort of specific priority list going along with it, such as we should kill Marak the Bloodied first, right? So I'm obviously talking at this from a mythic perspective. If we're doing that fight and we're like, we must kill Marak, the question you must ask yourself is why? Why was that decision made? A lot of DPSs will go, okay, my first target is to kill Marak. Why is that going on? Why is that important? So, if many of you know, Marak will kill the tank in a certain amount of time due to the way his mechanics work below 20%. Some of you will know that, some of you will go, oh, I didn't know that. Okay? So if you're in that camp of I didn't know that, you need to be aware of these things. This is why we're making that decision. He's not the one deploying the turrets, which seem to be killing everybody, so why wouldn't we kill that guy first? I don't know. Maybe we should do that. Right? And those are the kind of thinkings that go on, and those are the kind of ideas that would pop into a generally bad DPS's head. Halfway through the fight, he'll be like, hey, you know what? The fucking turrets keep killing us. We should kill the turret guy first, right, bros? And you're like, no, that would be really bad. That would actually be a terrible thing. Why? Turrets' damage is easily avoidable. We can move left or right with a few steps and absolutely not take damage from it. Our tanks can move away from it, therefore nullifying that damage entirely. Marek the Bloodied will absolutely kill our tank in the next few seconds because he needs to be under permanent cooldowns or he's going to get wrecked in the face. That's why, pay attention, don't be a DPS whore. Okay, don't come up with these simplistic solutions. Be able to devise tactics and work around it. And this is where you become a much more valued member of the team and a great DPSer. A great DPSer. So on top of that, we need to think, okay, now here's my thinking on it. In our guild, we bloodlust and we absolutely demolish Marek the Bloodied. So quickly, in fact, that my major cooldowns were still sort of dangling around as he died on some pulls. This then leads me as a DPSer to rethink my strategy a little bit. Do I need to put my full guts and glory into this when we still have a potential longer generation of the fight to go on? And these are the decisions you should be thinking about. Yes, the whole raid is supposed to blow this fucking guy up. But if I blow this guy up, I still waste huge amounts of damage. Huge amounts of damage because it dies so quickly. It actually melts. The fight just quickly degenerates into everybody derping around and then like, what do I do now? Where does my priorities lie now? So I had to make these kind of choices. Ultimately, it was so imperative that Marek died that I did blow all my cooldowns there. But the thought had to be there. The thought had to be there. You need to be the guy who's thinking about these things. Are we using these cooldowns in the correct way? Is it necessary there? Should we do it a bit earlier? Should we make changes? We're wasting a lot of damage here that could be potentially used elsewhere. And these are the kind of thought processes you need to be having because you understand how the fight works. You absolutely understand how the fight works. You understand, if we're doing Blast Furnace, that we're looking at heat. We're not looking at specifically how much trash or crap we can kill. We're actually looking at the specific priorities and reevaluating how our DPS is split. Can I go ahead and start cleaving the shit out of everything and do way more damage? Yes, I can. But my priorities lie in heat. And how the bellows operators respond to heat, and how they affect that heat mechanic. I need to be thinking about that. Yes, my cooldown has come back up. I have enough leeway time to make sure I can use it on the next mob, but if I use it now, I can stop the heat generation. And that is actually the goal of this area of the fight. That's the portion that needs to be considered. Not whether or not I could burst down form and feldspar certain quickly, yeah? I could probably help kill him, Ricky Tick, but I'll have way less damage when it comes to the third bellows or something along those lines. And then you start to develop this picture in your mind. It's not as simple as whether or not I can use my 2-minute cooldowns. It's how you develop and build your strategy. If I blow this cooldown then, this is the kind of thinking you should have because you understand the fight. If I blow this cooldown then, do I have this back up in time for the next segment of the fight where I need to burst again? If no, can I use that a little bit earlier, maybe get the tail end of the cooldown? Can I adjust it ever so slightly to not put out the best potential damage, but because I understand how this fight works, and I understand that my hunters are off doing other things at this point in time. They're off misdirecting. One of my fire mages is off cleaving things that are in the middle of the room. These guys aren't going to be helping damage this particularly evil, nasty mob that will affect the course of the fight. I need to reevaluate how I'm doing things. It's not good enough to know that, hey, we need to kill this thing fast. It's nowhere near good enough to make you a great player. You will not become the monster. You will not be a member of the team that is easily slapping bosses down to pieces if you don't understand why you're doing it and then able to adapt yourself. Adapt yourself to the surroundings. Because remember, we're no longer looking at the damage meter. We're not doing that. We're evaluating what will get this boss dead. It's a far more mature approach. It's absolutely a far more mature approach. But we've explained why, in parts 1 and 2, why we need to do this and understand our fight. You should not go in with no knowledge. If you've been in there for 30 pulls and you're not quite sure what's going on in various areas of the fight, ask. My God, ask. Find out what's going on. Talk in your melee channels. Do something. Talk in your caster channels. Why are we doing this? Is this important? Is this damage worth? Is this bloodlust worth here? These are all the questions you need to be asking all the time to be great. You can be good without knowing this information. Absolutely you can be good, but you'll never be great. You'll never be great unless you understand why you're doing things and then able to reasonably question why you're doing things. Able to adjust your character in a way that makes it far more sensible. Slight alterations to strategy, which can come from the DPSs, it can come from the healers, it can come from the tanks. Slight alterations in strategy can be the world of difference. The absolute world of difference between making something really hard or really difficult. If you're being overwhelmed, what can you do to solve that? What can other players do? And feel free, my God. One of the most difficult things I ever contend with DPS is that they believe ultimately that their characters should be the best at everything in some respect. How often do we see people, oh, they do too much AoE, I should be able to do AoE like that. Oh, they do too much single target, I should be able to do single target like that. And they have all these sort of arguments because they're bitching and whining and crying about their class not being super amazing at absolutely everything. A great DPSer can suggest other players to do things because they know they're better at it. What needs to be done here and what can you do elsewhere? A recent example was I was asked if I should help deal with a couple of mobs off in a distance. But at the same time, I knew that my role in the fight meant that I was better elsewhere. So what do? I suggest somebody else. I say, no, that class is better at that. That class is way better at that. Yeah, I understand what you're asking, but it's actually better if they do that and I go back to what I was doing because my class is better at it. It's like deciding who goes up on the balconies at Black Hand. How quickly were a lot of guilds to say, oh, the melee should go up? No! Think about what's going on up there. Who's good at it? It's okay for other players to be better than you at certain parts of fights. That's absolutely fine. If you can be smart enough and understand the fight enough to take advantage of that. Instead of waiting to watch a video or watch some other guild or ask a question like, hey, who do you send up on the balcony? Think about it. Who is better at this? What's the situation up on that balcony? A lot of spread out mobs that need very short amounts of health. So dot classes generally are out unless they've got Starfall and fucking Burst. Yeah? If you've got something like a rogue who has to put Rupture up like myself, no, I don't want to be up there. Why? I can basically not do much of anything other than kind of single target one down. What if we send up some warriors or somebody with, or rep pallies with massive cleave? Why don't we do something like that who have bursty on-demand damage all the time? Let's have some executes up there. Let's have some fucking touch of deaths up there. Let's have some fucking monk spirits jumping all over the place, attacking multiple mobs at the same time. What a much better idea. Ask yourself if you're a DPSer who knows why that needs to happen, or are you just hoping somebody else picks it out, or are you relying on somebody else to give you that information? If you want to become great, and that's what I want for all of you, I want you to become great. I want you to be able to analyze the situation and accept your characters or your class's failings. We're not great at this, we're better elsewhere, because you're all good at something, and being able to utilize that information and make good use of it by understanding the fight. And what you'll see is because your class is doing what it's best at, your damage will go way up. Way, way up. Which is what we all want, is to do the best damage. Right? We all want to be able to do that. So think about it. Use it. Understand your fight. Alright guys, thank you so much for listening. On to part 4. It's going to get good. Bye-bye.